Deep in the Dorset countryside, Melanie and Francesca are preparing for a spot of farming with a difference.
Well, this is great. This lovely, lovely, lovely brisk breeze.
You've guessed it. Today they're harvesting air.
So what's in this net is going to be really fresh and pure. Oh yeah, more lovely breeze going in.
Which is then bottled and sold for £80 a jar, mainly to the Chinese.
Lovely fresh air. Captured in a jar. It's so fresh and bracing. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's got no pollutants in it at all. It's fresh, it's good for you, and it's freely available. This is lovely. Yeah. Somebody's in for a treat with this pure air.
Of course, this isn't your ordinary high street air. This is apparently designer oxygen.
Make sure it's absolutely clean and fresh.
Collected in beauty spots around the UK.
Some of the wind might pick up different notes of grass, or near the sea it would pick up some saltiness in it as well.
And best not mix up your Wiltshire and Somerset vintages.
There we are, there's today's harvest.
Some people might say, actually, you're kind of ripping people off £80 for an empty jar. What's your reaction to that?
No, it's not a rip-off because it's a genuine product. We'd never ship a jar that was just filled in the kitchen or the garage at home.
Today we're in Hong Kong, which is one of the luxury capitals of Asia.
Leo, Melanie's son, is the man behind the idea, which he says also raises awareness of pollution around the world. Well, I'm clearly no expert, but to see what British people think I've developed this amateur technique of collecting air. The only problem is, how do I know if it's full? We're just asking if you'd pay £80 for this jar of Dorset air?
No.
Why not?
It's just a jar of air, isn't it?
What if you lived somewhere polluted?
I wouldn't, no. I wouldn't spend £80, no.
But in China, where pollution kills 1.6 million people a year, the jarred British air is proving popular.
If you think over the course of a whole day, somebody will be taking in the equivalent of around 20,000 of these jars. So a single jar of English air probably isn't going to have any effect.
This is lovely. Wow!
So as strange as it seems, if pollution spreads, this idea may just create millionaires out of fresh air. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News in Dorset.
Now, believe it or not, it may actually be possible to make money out of fresh air after all. One family from Dorset is bottling the pure scent of the British countryside to sell abroad. Well, let's talk to the man behind the venture, Leo Watts, who's live in Hong Kong for us. Good morning. Many people, when they first saw this story, thought it was April the 1st. Is this some kind of joke?
Well, the thing is that you could very well much say that, but the thing is that pollution isn't really much of a joke in the end. And what we've been able to do now is put a price on fresh air in a city that has none.
But we've been running the reporter all morning. I believe it's your mum and sister that we interviewed, and they're walking through the countryside with nets, catching air. That's hardly scientific, is it?
No, but the thing is that if you're going to bottle air, the main thing is how are you going to do it? Now, in order to supply a luxury brand, you have to have a story, you have to have some sort of methodology behind how you're going to do it. So in this instance, we've sort of come to the point where we've got air farming going on. There's been cases before of people bottling air. There's a group in Canada who do compressed cylinders. And, I mean, they don't show ever, where they're actually pressurizing their air from or where they're actually collecting it. So in order to charge the amount that we do, we go to great length to show, that we're actually doing it. And there are many methods to air farming, and this is the first one we came up with.
Yeah, we've got a couple of guests in the studio. Ian Lee, you probably heard him guffaw there. I mean, what people just cannot get their heads around is that you're actually claiming that you are bottling the air, putting that into a jar, and it's actually a sustainable product that you're then selling on. How do you claim to collect the air?
Well, I mean, this is the thing, is that we go out onto the countryside, we go to a hilltop, or we go to perhaps a nice flowing river, somewhere with quite a lot of scenery, and we pass nets through the air, collecting in as much as we can, and we deposit that in the jars. I mean, before that, we have the jars open for a few minutes, but I mean, you could say that you could just do this outside your front door, but
yes.
If we did that, there wouldn't be any sustainability to it.
You are clearly very serious about this. I mean, I'll just read you a couple of the tweets that we've had in. One from Tracy Thompson here. She says, idiots, who would seriously buy that? Mike and Alison, they say that you're just ripping people off, basically. Another here from Maxwell, which is the point that I'm trying to get at. How would you enjoy the scent? Open the bottle and it's all gone. You'd have to be a fool to buy it. Do you understand people's reservations?
Yeah, no, I do. But I mean, in the case where you're living, let's say, for example, you're in the UK and you can't get any fresh milk, and the only option to you is powdered milk or perhaps UHT, and someone comes along finally and says, hey, do you know what, I can provide you with fresh air? It's just a case of what you're going to pay for it. Now, the thing is, we're not trying to provide a product
milk,
that is for masses, by all means.
Powdered milk, you can actually see. You know what you're buying. You can quantify that. The argument that many people have is that they've no idea that you've scientifically collected this air, and how can you really then sell it on?
Well, it's interesting you say about the point about what you can see and what you can't see, because as you probably know with pollution, that's very much the case again. There's some bits that you can see and some bits that you can't, and quite often it's the bits that you can't see that really harm you. Now, the thing is, you look through one of our jars of air, and you see straight through it, and that shows how clean and pure it is. Now, the thing is, if someone wants to open that up, you know, of course they can test it, and they'll find that in there are traces of elements which come from the places that we say that we're bottling it from.
And how do you know that the quality of the air that you are collecting is a quality that people should aspire to receive? I mean, do you test the air? Because it just seems like you're walking through the countryside with a net.
Sure, well, there are very numerous number of websites where you can actually find out what the air quality is of the day. And do it that way. I mean, the thing is with, for example, mineral water. You drink mineral water and it's not distilled water. Of course you're going to get some form of impurities in it, but it's natural impurities. And the thing is, in the countryside in the UK, we've never complained about the air quality. We've thought it's safe and we've enjoyed it. Very much the case in the countryside, you'll drink water from the tap. At the same time, in the towns and cities, you might not necessarily do. But do we test that every day? Probably not. Now, the thing is, we're doing the best that we can do to provide...
Oh, well, Leo, I suppose the proof of the pudding is in the fact that you have actually sold, I believe, 100 jars of this fresh air?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, the thing is, it's the lead up to Chinese New Year. We started on the 1st of January and started promoting it. I mean, with Chinese New Year, it's all about extravagant gifts, really. You know, it's a case of whether you give people licee packets, which are money packets, if you give them boxes of chocolates, or how elaborate you want to be with it. So, again, this isn't for the masses. This is for the financial elite. This is for people who want to give it to their business partners as a sign of prosperity, of things to come. And this is something that can be enjoyed, perhaps as a decorative piece, more than something that might be used practically. But it highlights a very important issue that's ongoing in Beijing. I mean, you can't go anywhere without breathing in toxic fumes. Whether or not that's the fault of the West in general or not, I think that by producing this product, whether it's novelty or not, it's provided this debate. And for example, you read in the newspaper, 5.5 million people die each year from air pollution. I mean, 5.5. I mean, that's just a statistic. It means nothing to us. Suddenly, some guy from the countryside goes and sells air for 80 quid a bottle or jar, sells 150 of them, and suddenly it's world news. Everyone's talking about it. So that's just proof of the pudding, that you can, you know, basically bring attention to something just through a novelty product.
Another tweet here from Dixie. He says, what I wouldn't give for the phone numbers of those 100 customers. I've got a few investment ideas I'd like to share with them. I presume the feedback is that they're very happy with the product?
Well, I mean, that's it. The thing is that so far, you know, we've had people order them and then perhaps give them on as gifts. People thought that was quite funny and have bought one subsequently as well. So, I mean, the proof, you know, as you said before, is in the pudding.
Yeah, very quickly, are you planning to bottle anything else in the near future?
Well, we'll continue to sell our air as and when it's required. But in terms of other natural resources and things, I'll leave it up to the water companies, the gas companies, and everyone else to bottle the other natural resources. I'll just stick with air for now.
Leah Watts, thank you for speaking to us this morning.
Legend. Utter legend. That is what I'm talking about. Leo is a legend. Get him a knighthood. He is fantastic. I respect the cojones of that gentleman to do that. Well done him.
They've got customers.
Oh, well done him. He's a genius.
100 people have bought these jars.
He's done nothing. He's made £8 grand. beautiful. And he's got his mum and his sister doing all the hard work. Utter legend. Well done,
Well,
Leo.
Sarah has tweeted in to say, fair play to them selling
Yep.
fresh air for 80 quid. Wish I'd thought of it.
Yeah. He's a
Yeah.
genius.
Absolutely.
He
I
didn't
was
crack a
laughing at the
smile, though, did he?
He was a little bit grumpy.
Well, no, but to be fair, on the defensive, and I did say I didn't really want to do that interview because I thought I was a bit worried it might be a little bit rude. Thought it might be a little bit
May I
rude.
say to you, congratulations. Shades of Frost Nixon there. I'm thinking, I'm seeing a movie at some point. I'm seeing a movie of that. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, but whereas I do think it's bonkers. If people are buying it, then
Well, that's
you've
the
got
thing,
a
that's why
market.
you can't
Absolutely,
really
and he
argue.
did say, I mean, it's a novelty product. He admitted that. It's not like you're supposed to put your face in the jar and breathe in the air. I mean,
They know what they're buying. They
If
can
he
see
had-
right through the jar, he
If
said.
he had a twirly moustache, we would be treating him as one of Britain's great eccentrics because he's a young man. There's a little bit of actually, he's a genius.
He is a
I think
genius.
that's brilliant.
We're going to look through all the papers with Andrea and Ian in just a moment. So we'll just finish on this one tweet from Barfett saying, which is a good point. How do users know when the jar is empty? I don't know.
All right, Schrodinger.
I don't think it doesn't withstand an awful lot of scrutiny, does it?
None of what.
Okay.